Good afternoon from yammybtv. Wishing you all well today, sending loads of love as usual. Now, over the last few months and weeks and since the journey began, many times I've been asked the question about when I got into my sports and my powerlifting, and from being very small, how I built up to be a very strong small man, if you get what I mean. Because my growing and my development was stagnated, it's fair to say, up until the age of really 19. When I first went to Aylesbury, I hadn't fully developed at all in any way by the time I got my first sentence. But the early days of where you live, especially once I got to that children's home state, so we always used to play out in the vicinity of the estate and play cricket and use like the dustbins as a wicket and things like that. And when I told you how I became a Leeds United fan, and also at that time, the group of us that were together around at that time decided on what cricket teams we would support as well. And, if you supported Arsenal, then your cricket team would probably have been Middlesex. But me having picked Leeds, I picked Yorkshire as my cricket team as well. And one of my idols when I was growing up was Jeff Boycott. And I was thinking this morning of a real funny one when he was playing for England, and you know that he's a legendary England opening batsman. And he was known for being a slow scorer. Let's have it right. He would take like 2 days to get a century, and we know there were many exciting players like Gattin and Gower, even Mike Brearley, who could score double the amount of runs that he would take the time to. So there was an incident once, right, where he pushed for a single, and he pushed the ball out. It went past two fieldsmen and went into someone's hand. But I think it was either Mike Gattin or David Gower, I can't remember, or Mike Brady, one of the three. They set off to run for a single because it looked like an easy single. But Jeff Boycott, being Jeff Boycott, stayed at his wicket and didn't move. So you're running down halfway down the thing, you realise that he's not running for the single, and the other person at the other end gets run out. And he's looking at him and thinking, why didn't you go for the single? But he was like that. He wouldn't want to give his wicket away cheaply at all. That's why when he commentates, you always hear him that when you're waving your bat around outside for no reason, like, bowlers, especially swing bowlers. You remember the old West Indian teams of the Malcolm Marshalls, the Michael Holdings, my God, and Collis King and Joel Garner. Imagine that field of cricketers, bowlers, bowling at you. Because they used to be able to bowl so fast, and the bouncers used to be able to knock your block off and that kind of stuff. Many accidents happened during that time. I used to go to Lord's Cricket Ground and sell the scorecards, in the little box when, they used to have I think I went to the Prudential World Cup in 78, I think, or something like that, when the West Indies, I think, won it when Vivian Richards was hitting the ball out the stands and all that. So, yep, I used to like cricket as well. And when you're young and you're in the estate that I was in, we used to use the plastic bins as a wicket, and with a bat, of course, and we all used to come out and be on different sides. Obviously, it'd be very hard to find a full team to play against each other, but you just have your one man batting and somebody else bowling down the other end, and you take turns. But I fancied myself as an opening batsman like Jeff Boycott. So we know that I was a bit of an imitator. We know I like to think I was Eddie Gray as well, running down the left wing. But I was very small for my age physically. So I always felt that I had to try a little bit harder, if you get what I mean, than the bigger developed boys. When I was playing, like I told you, that I was on Watford's, not on their books, it's fair to say, but I went for some training sessions with Mark Steen and a couple of others who made it as professional footballers. But I can always remember being so small, like the muddy ground and pitches. I just feel like I was weak, and it felt a bit more harder, like I could only play half a game, say. So I knew that I had problems with my development compared to other boys. And then when I went into care, the development stagnated, and I didn't really start maturing until I was like 17 or probably 19, fair to say, that I developed when I was in Aylesbury. So I had those early days of sport in me already, Always used to watch my match of the day. Always used to watch my cricket. Things like, I even used to watch the old athletics as well. You know, the 800 meters, the 1500 meters. You know, during those days it was Ovic, Coe. I think there was Steve Cram come afterwards, I think. But you know, we had a good British team around about that time with the athletics, and they were breaking records as well. But I used to fancy myself. Oh no, not fancy myself. You know, like in school, they used to have the cross countries. And like they used to have like all schools like with 500, 600, 700 boys running around like big green fields, and you know it goes on forever and ever and ever. And I remember I came about 99th position or something, and for a small man, you know, so I always find that I had the heart to try and, you know, further determination to try and get, you know, to do the best that I could with what I had. Sorry, Big Lee, I'll get back to you in a minute, boy. But then obviously you're asking the questions about how then I developed, you know, my muscle and got into real physical strength with the circuits, the powerlifting, in which it's fair to say that I excelled at and got my gold badge at, amongst other things as well, badminton, all institutional games like sponge tennis, even a bit of basketball, because I used to have springs in my feet, you know, like the badminton net. I used to be able to do 1-2 steps and fly over. And remember, I'm only 5'8". So when I learned the tricks of the trade for the powerlifting, remember I'd done a video once about the strongest man in the world at one stage, which was Gary Taylor. In the 80s. So I used to watch some of the guys with all their muscles and the deadlifting and the squats and that kind of thing. And I wanted to be, you know, from being a small man, I wanted to really be stronger. You know, for image rights as well, fair to say, you wanted to look good. You know, that was part of it. You know, it was almost a safety, survival mechanism, and the technique that, you know, you got a big chest kind of thing. It keeps people a bit weary of you. So I used to think about that as well as a survival tool. But the love of the sports as well, like I really enjoyed it. But to get to the stage that I got to, with the physical training, especially with the building up your back and your legs and your thighs, and you know all the fast twitch movements and things like that. It started. 1 second. It started, and for all you lot that want to go into training or you're very small, it is possible to really dig deep and find that ability and dedication to become a keen sportsman and build yourself up, you know, but you have to be able to put the hard work in. So I wouldn't say that I had natural muscle like as a small boy and a man, if you like, as a young prisoner, but not like 9 stone or something, not really big, but you know, I knew that to be a big powerlifter and a strong man, and to use that muscle because it helps you, you know, play football and things. I didn't want to just be a weightlifter, bodybuilder, powerlifter on its own. I always used to want that muscle to use in other sports, because I used to find that muscle used to help me, say, with my football as well, when I used to want to hold off, you know, big strong defenders, and you know, you've got strong legs and back. It does help you, but you know, I learned very, very quickly agility and speed, as well as having the muscle, because no good having all the muscle if you're not going to be able to use it. But I would say that I started seriously getting trained around about the Queen's Pardon time. The Queen's Pardon time, when I was getting called all the names under the sun. I've told you all about that before. One morning, I woke up. It was probably my 2nd or 3rd sentence during that time for burglary. At that time, I woke up and I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to be just like these guys, and I want to have a big chest, and I want to get really strong, and I want to be able to compete. I remember watching, you know, I remember being in Wandsworth and watching a competition with all the great lifters, you know, like Beefy. Hippolyte wasn't around, he came a bit later on, but you had Roy Knight and Del Croxton, Frank Rudd, obviously Beefy, Clyde Wilson, and then Kenny Kane. The little smallest lifter, was a co-defendant of probably my only co-D on one of my cases, sadly. Did something bad to me. But yeah, forget that. But he got his gold. He was like 56 kilos, and he could lift, like, for his body weight, quite a lot of weight. So he was like past his gold, if you like. And during those early days of powerlifting, the badges were much harder to get. Like your gold now, say for a 67 kilo bracket or 75 kilo bracket, would be like 600 or 560. I don't know exactly how much you need to total to get like the bronze, silver and gold. But in the beginning of time, you needed to go from brown 1, brown 2, brown 3, black 1, black 2, black 3, black, and then bronze, silver and gold. So in those days, to reach black 3 would be like a gold today, if you get what I mean. So so for my body weight, so 67 kilos put into the 75 kilo bracket, gold at that time would have been about 630 kilograms to total. So you need like a 220 deadlift, a 210 squat and 120 bench or something to total 630. Right? So when I first started out, when I first went down there to try it all out, I remember I wasn't actually blessed straight away with having big lifts. Like, you know, the squat, the bench was I always used to do my press ups in my cell and that kind of stuff. But the work that I had to put in to reach the stage of reaching my gold badge quite early on in my prison career took a lot of dedication and hard work. You remember, I got all my development muscle early on in that career, sadly. And then once I had it, I used to, like someone was saying the other day, then it's easy to like not do it for a little while, and then when you do it again, all the muscle mass comes back. You saw the ugly mug, Stevie boy, who's got his own channel up there, the other day, he was saying that he used to box, but he still can, even though he's not at his best maybe right now, he still holds on to some muscle maturity and memory from all those years of training. And so I found that to be with mine as well. But in the beginning of time, I used to have to wake up. I used to get the books to read. Obviously, I used to watch other lifters, how they used to lift, how they, you know, the way they deadlift would keep your back flat and your feet firmly. You know, some could do it in the sumo style. There was a few big sumo style means you do your legs wider and pull the bar up like from your legs not like being flat in a squatting position like that, but being wide, and then pull up the weight like it's allowed in competition. So there's many styles of picking up the weight in deadlift that if you wasn't aware of, that you are allowed to use certain techniques to get that weight up. But I'll get into that in a minute. But to build up to that stage, those early lifts that I had, I think I'd done a baller. I went down for my first baller thing where you have to do baller. Was a thing that you did before you could really start thinking about doing powerlifting, like for your body weight. So you'd have to do something like press behind neck, squats, about 6, 7, 8 exercises, like a circuit kind of thing, and see if you pass that stage, and then you would move on to your lifting. So say I started out and I could only bench, 60 kilo? So 20 either end for a small man, then 9, 10 stone, push it once, and you know, you're looking around you and everybody else is doing 2, 3 plates, and you know, their muscles are really massive. And some of the great lifters from those early days were picking up 5 plates, 6 plates, deadlift, and the squatting as well. So you learnt from early on from other videos that I was taught. Sorry, Lee, again, mate, you're gonna have this great Lee Mayo there trying to call me. You know, the early days of the deadlifting, especially like when I first went to deadlift, I think I could only do something like 140, to be honest, 140, which would have been about 320s either end for 1 rep. But Gary Taylor was saying to me, no, that's good for a small man who ain't done weights before, that you could do that. And my squat straight away I noticed, so that must have been built in me from like the early cross country and footballing things, because we were taught with the squatting. I see a lot of people doing squats now, they go halfway. There's always, you know, differences of opinion, which is better, to sit on the floor, you know, go bucket squats, we used to call them, where your backside touches the floor, which would be a full squat to me. So that's the way that I was taught. And I believe that made your body stronger, your lower back, your core there, stomach bits there, and the thighs, of course. So the squatting straight away, I was already at 100 kilo. So I worked out quite early, because at first, you know, you're used to hold the bar on the top of your neck to squat. Then we were taught that you have to have it flat across your shoulders so that you get that little position there and get more depth. Otherwise, there's only a certain amount of weight you can lift if you hold the bar up on your neck, say. So those early lifts was something of a starting point for me. So, but my goal, you know, in my head, like I was thinking, I want to be like them. I want to be able to, and it was possible and it was achieved. So I knew that and this gets on, remember, to the injuries. So a lot of that determination early on in life and the never say die attitude and never give up, even though I didn't really know that I had it and what it meant at that time, were in fact reasons I believe why I got up from the spinal injury to start with the recommendation that I'd never be able to use my hands and legs again. That inner strength that came from all those years of training and dedication, I think probably saved my life that day, fair to say, because if I wouldn't have been a strong man, how would I have been able to get up from such a serious accident? But again, I used to wake up. I woke up one morning and I said, I remember what I told you. Remember the PO? He said to me, I couldn't get a DCAT for saving the lady's life because I had that criminal damage on my record. With that criminal damages, and in brackets, it's got arson for some reason that I must have pleaded guilty for when I was in an approved school in West Grinstead, where the curtains got burnt that much, and I went to Horsham Juvenile or something, I pleaded guilty and got a £20 fine, but it stays on your record. So that you can't go to a DCAT because it's made of wood, and if you got previous for arson, even though I know that it's not an arson charge, it's criminal damage, but it's in brackets, so they look at your previous convictions. So for the Queen's pardon, I actually only got a CCAT, but the first CCAT that I ever got would have been Downsview. It would have been Downsview, yeah, when it first opened. So before I got there, I'd already woke up and said to myself, no more smoking cigarettes, Sam. I'm not doing nothing. I'm just going to wake up every morning, do my sit-ups, do my squats, do this, do that. You know, a proper dedicated with a program in my head to reach, you know, the goals that I wanted to set out. Obviously, I was probably at that stage, at a brown badge stage. So then, you know, to get black 1, 2, 3 and bronze, silver and gold seemed very, very far away with the lifts that I started with, if you get what I mean. So nothing's ever impossible if you stay dedicated. So for a few months on my own in that Wandsworth cell, before I got to Downsview, and then experienced my first powerlifting competition, really where a lifers team from scrubs made up of Del Bal Calendar, Barry G and Ron Levy, they were all big lifters, right? But they were lifers, right? So once I got to Downsview, and I still continued with no smoking, I used to go for my runs around the perimeter of the fence, really, really dedicated into getting as strong as I possibly could. Maybe you could have called it, I could have had little man syndrome. And I wanted to be, you know, get strong and tough and be able to, you know, be able to back it. Because even though I didn't do a lot of boxing in adult life and things, when I was at approved school, in fact, they used to take us to a boxing club called Storrington, which was down in Brighton, where we used to have to mix it up a little bit. And obviously I was the smallest there. So I'd done some little bits, being both handed and both footed kind of stuff. I had that kind of blessing with physicality quite early on. But it still had to take hard work. So once I got to Downsview and I was looking at all the others around me, there was some guy in my body weight. He already had a 200 kilo deadlift and a 110 bench. You remember you used to have to hold the bar on your chest and then wait for the clap and then push it. If the bar stops like halfway up, failed lift, you get the red light, no lift. So I'm watching all these lifters, like from the heavyweights, like the Del Croxtons, super heavyweight, you'd have to lift much, much more than me to win a competition. And then you got the 75 kilo, 82 kilo, 90 kilo bracket, right? So I would have been in the 67 kilo bracket at that time. So having been in Wandsworth or Scrubs round about that time there, I was already saw those lifters, those lifers. So imagine you coming in a van, handcuffed or whatever to the gym screws, and they came to Downsview to have a 4 against 4 tournament. So I managed to, there was there was two of us in the 67. I managed to get a place in the team, right? So, and by that time, I think I was round about the black one standard, but not gold, bronze, silver, or that quite yet. That came a couple of years later, when the more mature I got with my muscle. But I'll never forget the sight when they came in. I was thinking, wow, all of them I've seen lift. And I'm thinking, there's no way that we're gonna win this tournament. Because I was looking at our heavyweight, our 82 kilo bracket, our 75 kilo bracket, and me. And I'm looking at their 67 kilo bracket, and I'm thinking, nah. You're not gonna win that down here today. Our team weren't listening to me. I was saying, listen, I've already seen what they can lift. So they came in, and I realized straight away that I had to, because when you're doing the Swartz, the pound for pound ratio of the scoring, you know, to get your lifts, you know, for pound, if you're going to win a competition on pound for pound, I'd have to match the lightest man on the other team to win. So then I was thinking, no, I won't beat him on. His bench was round about the same as mine. My bench got to 100. I always had a big chest, but my bench wasn't that big. So at that stage, I think I only had 105 with a clap or something for a 10 stone man, 10.5 stone man. But the squat, straight away, I think I had a 175 or 180, and the deadlift. On the day before I went into that competition, I thought I could only deadlift 180. So I really built up over the months of hard grafting to reach a decent standard of lifting, if you get what I mean. So the day of the competition, you got a full packed house in Downsview, and I've gone up to lift, and I'm keeping my eye on the lightest man, because obviously I've worked out the lighter you are, the more chance you got of winning, but not so much with their team from Scrubs, because Ron Levy was deadlifting like 275 in a sumo style, breaking records already. So there was no way that I was going to win the tournament, but I wanted to be the best out of our team that came to play there, who we was playing against. So I knew that if I stuck with the lifts of what that other geezer on the other team, Dale Callender, had on what he was lifting, I knew that I had a chance of coming out the best one out of the 4 on my team. So yeah, they went up, they absolutely battered us, and I picked up the 200 on that day, because I've never used knee wraps before, or never been in a jumpsuit, you know, the suit that makes your body tighter and that kind of stuff. But somehow or another that day was the first time I picked up 200. I don't know whether I was hyped up or whether, you know, the fright of not being able to lift it, because I saw that he done 190, the geezer in my bracket. And I knew that to stay in front of him, because we were level on the squats, I thought, well, if I could pull up, and so I got the 180, I got the 190, and I thought, well, let me try the 200. You never know, because if I pull up the 200, then I know that I'm pretty close to the same score as him, with the same weight, which would have been about a black 2 or black 3. I don't know how I did it that day, but hard work and perseverance and motivation and desire to be that strong boy, once small, once big. You know, when you're chasing dreams, you've got to try really hard. Nothing's beyond impossible, if you get what I mean. As long as it is possible, it can be done. That's what I always say to you lot today, especially after getting up from those injuries. So yeah, it worked out that when they were calling out when you get the trophies and whatnot, we know they won their top 3, but I actually beat their smallest man on their team by about 10 kilo or something like that. So I managed to get the clap and be better than the rest in my team. So you got out of 8 positions, like I came 4th. So that was my first tournament. So you asked me, what was my first ever tournament? So it would have been in Downsview. And then I had the big one in 92 when I got my gold in Wandsworth. So that's how it started. But my message to you lot, especially if you're smaller and you want to develop and you want to keep out of trouble, especially, gyms are great places. We know about Lee Mail's gym. We know about Mason Carter, the youngsters coming up. We know the gyms all around the country where you can go and get into fighting, any kind of sports, or just hobbies itself, to keep your mind and your body in a good state. You can get those goals if you stay dedicated and motivated for it all. So that's how it started. But I'll tell you about when I got the gold another time, right? If I haven't told you already in the past, I can't remember now. But I'm coming up in a minute to babble on about some the beginning of time crimes, all right? So sending loads of love and hope to see you soon.